Before Andre goes to bed, I want to ask he has a question. First of all, he said this is excellent. It's nearly 4 o'clock in South Africa, but
Oh yeah.
he's feeling empowered, Doug.
Nice.
And so here's his question: if you will, briefly discuss female siblings dabbling in the male siblings relationships, including continuous communication after a breakup.
Uh-oh.
I
I don't
know.
want to say it.
Currently dealing with this, and it's hurtful.
I
And
don't want to say it.
I'm open for correction if I'm wrong for feeling this way. He says, "Help a brother out, Doug."
I can't control women, you know. You can't really control women. You can advise them, but people are going to do what people are going to do. Uh, should your sibling, should your sister be involved in your relationship with your wife? Um, to the most extent, no. No. You should introduce your wife to your sister and to your parents and everything. This is me, right? You asked me a question, so I'm telling you, not it's probably not a good idea, because what is she going to tell them? Is your sister married? If now, what is a single woman going to tell a married woman? What advice is a single woman going to give to a married woman? Probably some advice that single women, she's going to say, hey, you should do some of the stuff that I'm doing, right? What advice am I going to give you? Stuff that I'm doing. What is the advice a single woman's going to give to a married woman? The advice that the single woman's doing. She's going to say, hey, behave like me. This is how I behave, and this is how I remain single. This is how I'm not married currently. And that's probably what she's going to tell your wife in some way, form, or fashion. Yeah, that's probably what she's going to tell your wife. So what I would say, right, is just uh, you can't control women. I don't know what you should do on that one.
Well, he said the married one is the messy one. That guess that's his sister.
Okay. You so remember, there's a leader and there's a follower. In every contact, there's going to be a leader, a follower, a dominant, a submissive, and often you hear that as a masculine and a feminine. Dominant male, masculine; feminine, female, feminine. Excuse me, submissive, feminine, female. Right.
Mm-hmm.
Um, do you want? It's hard for me to say. It's hard for me to say. The main thing is you lead your wife. You lead your family. Don't allow other people to lead you. Don't allow anybody else to lead your family. If your wife wants some advice, outside advice, not that you can really force her to do much anything, right? But if your wife wants some outside advice, you should probably get her around some older married women, and maybe your mother, maybe somebody who's not directly related to you, but probably someone who's close to you and cares about you. And because women talk to women, you definitely don't want her to go around talking to other men and getting advice. That's stupid. Don't do nothing like that. But get her around older women, and but once the contact has already been established between your sister, and your wife. I mean, what are you going to do to break that up? I don't think that there's any real thing that you can do to stop that.
Mm-hmm.
At most, you can just advise your wife as to how much contact she should have with whomever she should be in contact with, and then I would be a little more proactive and just put her in the face of a bunch of older married women.
Mm-hmm. Because, like you said, you can't control women, especially in this day and age. It's kind of hard to even advise women. I don't know how we've gotten so far away from where we used to be, where you used to be able to advise women. But somebody on Rumble commented that they feel like this generation is too far gone. The women are acting like men, and the men are acting like women, and they were just saying this. They almost feel hopeless.
I think that, yeah, that's how it can be too far gone if the current people who are in charge of the world remain in charge of the world. They're the ones who made sure that it's too far. It seems like everything's so bad that no, they made it all bad. They made it bad
Mm-hmm.
because it's whoever is in charge
Mm.
makes the rules, right? So
Yes.
what you have to do is put the correct people in charge. Put people who want life to thrive.
Mm.
People who care about life. Put them in charge.
Mm.
And then what they'll do is they'll create laws that make people more moral,
Mm.
because people if you, again with the options, right? If you
Right.
give the option to be moral and you give the option to be immoral, a lot of people are going to choose the other option because there's two options.
Mm.
You take away one of those options, you make laws where, hey, the law is, no, you got to do X, Y, and Z, and
Mm.
we don't permit all these other things that lead to destruction.
Mm.
So the main thing is the leaders need to change. Um, uh, yeah. What do you call it? A regime change.
Ah, yes.
A regime change. I said that in one of my videos, and that particular word, that phrase, regime change, got that's the only silenced part. It was that. So I just wanted to say it. I wonder
They
if they'll cut it
censored
out.
it.
Yeah. I was just running my mouth, blah blah blah. I said regime change, and that was you just see my mouth moving, and the playback in it, and they're like, nah, not that word, not that phrase.
What do you say to the? Were you gonna say something?
Mm-mm.
Oh, first of all, Andre said right on. I know it's a tricky topic, but I do appreciate the answer. Thank you. He says.
Yes, sir.
What do you say to the women who say, "I would be feminine to the right man. I
Um,
would be agreeable and yielding to the right man, but most of y'all aren't right, so I'm gonna continue to be who I am. But I'll do it for the right one. If I find a masculine man, I'm gonna be feminine. What do you say about that?
that they're not telling the truth,
Hmm.
and that the person is who they are. They're going to do whatever they're currently doing.
Yes. I would say that too. People generally don't change. They are who they are. And when you're a marriage age, and particularly if you're beyond 30, just because you meet a masculine man or a male provider doesn't mean you're going to change your attitude and your philosophy on life and the way you move as a woman. So femininity is not something that you just pick up. It is something that you're actually reared into. I mean, you can learn, as a woman, but typically you're either feminine or you're not. And as a man, you've probably dealt with, both types of women, and you can see the difference clearly. And you probably would steer away from a woman who would say something like that. I will only choose, a certain man if I could be. I don't even know what type of man they're looking for. If I'll be feminine, if I meet the right man, I don't even really know what that means. But
I think they heard other people say it. It's one of those, I heard a phrase, and this is the phrase I'm going to repeat. It
okay.
wasn't an original thought.
Hmm.
Um, so they're just repeating the phrase.
Okay.
But no, if a now you asked a question as to what can you remember what the question was in regards to that particular attitude, or somebody making that phrase statement?
What do you say to women who say, "I'll be feminine to the right man," or "I'll be feminine to a man that's masculine"? I'll be feminine or yielding or submissive to the right man.
And did you ask me if would I deal with somebody like that? No,
Yes.
maybe you didn't. Did
Yeah, yeah,
you?
yeah. Would you deal
Okay.
with somebody who had that attitude?
No, I wouldn't. And why wouldn't I? I mean, well, okay. If I'm having sexual relations, then I'm gonna have sexual relations with a woman who doesn't meet all my criteria of marriage. You
Hmm.
know. But if we're talking about being in a relationship, something that's probably leading towards marriage,
Hmm.
eh, I could say something about that too. But then what would I say? Then no, no, it's a bad idea. You don't get with somebody who's oppositional. Someone who says, "I'm masculine when I need to be masculine, and I'm feminine when I need to be feminine. I'll be feminine if you're really really masculine." No, that just means she's an oppositional woman, and that she's going to argue with you, and so-called debate with you, and then raise her voice while you're talking. and then start cussing and and then threaten to do X, Y, and Z. No, I already know what's going to happen. Well, what? No, I'm not going to deal with that woman.
Mm. And I forgot what you said. You said I'm gonna talk about that, but I don't remember what it was.
Oh, just in general, my I have like philosophies, and then I have things that I kind of do, and so I try to make my philosophies and the things I do kind of match up, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so relationships make no sense. Either you're getting married or you're not.
Mm.
I'm dating is the thing I'm saying, not relationships. Dating makes no sense. It is of no benefit to the woman. It benefits the man because he gets to have sex
Mm.
and men want to have sex, but it does not benefit the woman because she's less likely to be able to have a marriage
Mm.
at any point. The more these dates that you're having of these sex partners is lessening the likelihood of that woman getting married, and or once she gets married being able to stay married. And if she can't stay married, then it's destroying the family, and it's going to hurt the children and the family. So then what is the most the most ideal situation is that we don't have dates. I mean, no, we don't have dating. A dating culture is
Mm.
only marriage. Where we are meeting with each other to see if we are going to get married. Not that we're having sexual intercourse. Like I said, I have my philosophies and I have the things that I do, and I try to make them come into alignment and stuff. But no, it makes more sense that we don't have a whole bunch of dating partners
We call it
like
court.
the Muslims.
We call it
Huh?
courtship. We call it
Yes,
courtship. You don't
yes,
date court for marriage.
yes.
Mm-hmm.
And
You
while
were.
you're courting for marriage, you aren't having sex because that's dating.
Mm. Mm. You said like the Muslims.
Like the Muslims, they do it well, or the Indians, the East Indians. Like I,
Mm.
I remember I met an East Indian guy who was telling me that that his parents are have arranged a marriage for him, and that the marriage was good, but he didn't know the woman. He actually only got to he met the woman like once for 5 minutes
Mm.
or 10 minutes, and they got to ask each other some questions. But the parents had already set up, you're going to marry this particular woman. She's pretty enough. She comes from a decent family, and I'm going to show you her picture. Okay, yeah, you think she's pretty? Oh well, she comes from a family. She's probably going to do well, do things that are good for you. They're telling the woman whatever they're telling the woman. I don't know. I didn't talk to the woman, but they're probably telling her something similar. They come and they meet. They only speak for some time. They aren't having sexual relationships. It's within the eyesight of other people, and then they go about their way. The families come together. This family comes together and says, okay, what did you think? That family comes together and says, what do you think? It kind of matters what you think, but we're bringing y'all all together, and then y'all come together and you're getting married. And it was a interesting, decent practice,
Mm.
and it
And he
worked for him.
and he was
He was
happy.
married, happy. Yes.
Wow. Yeah, in those cultures, they don't marry who they love. They love who they marry. You get
Yeah.
married and you fall in love. I have friends who are Iranians and Indian females, Iranians and Indians, and it was really baffling. I love asking them questions, but they told me, "Oh, my parents arranged for me to get married, so I got married." And another woman was like, "I'm getting married," and I would ask them, "So how do you feel about that?" "Oh, I trust my father. Oh, I trust my mother. I trust my parents with all my heart. Doesn't matter if I know them or not, if I know the person or not. Oh, I'm just so happy that I'm getting married." And I'm like, wow, we do not have that culture, that culture here in
Mhm.
America. But yeah, they don't go out on dates. No, you meet who you're going to marry. You might meet them a few minutes before or on another day, but you don't really get to spend time with them until you actually say I do.
Mm.
And it seems to work. They have a very low divorce rate.
Right. I
Yeah.
could do it. I sure could.
Hmm.
As long as she's a pretty woman, she's agreeable. My parents met their parents and said, "Hey, this is a decent family. This is where they come from. This is what their family does. She's been reported to behave well. And this is the person I want you to marry. I go, I meet her. Hey, yeah, you are pretty. Hey, we seem to work out in these few minutes. Yeah, I could do that. I could. I really could.
Mhm.
Yeah,
That's beautiful.
I
Yeah.
sure could.
Mhm. Yeah. So, we've talked about a lot. We talked about marriage. We talked about community. Hold on. We talked about race relations. We talked about how we all came from source and we need to work together. We have covered a wide range of topics, and I've thoroughly enjoyed this. And I want to invite you back to my show. I think when I hear you talk, I think, wow, you sound like your dad. And he and I did a great job raising you. And not just what we put in you, but what you have learned on your own as a man is really impressive. And I pray that the ancestors, God Almighty, and the angels will send you a very beautiful, loving, cooperative, agreeable wife who will give you lots of babies so I can have lots of grandchildren soon.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yes, yes.
Andre said, "Father and mother knows best." And Tanya said, "Facts." Thank you, Sister Tanya.